is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and today we present to you the All Stay Hot team. You've seen everyone's All-Pro team, you've seen the Associated Press, you've seen PFF. This is Stay Hot's All-Pro team, and the way we have this set up is Theo is picking the offensive line, Theo is picking the secondary, Matt is picking the special teams players like Justin Tucker. Matt is picking the weapons. And then I am taking the QBs. And I am taking the front seven players. So, with that being said, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Wednesday evening?
I'm doing pretty well. You told me that you were notebook pilled before the episode, Blaiden. Is that a new thing for you? Did you just turn to paper?
It is a very new thing for me, and I discovered it because, if you don't know this, I went to college for software engineering. I do software development for a consulting firm right now, and I'm on a project where we have tickets in multiple different interfaces, and so I find it difficult to kind of keep track of everything by I keep having to go back and forth, and some people were like, "Oh, you just got to get another virtual task manager, like another list on your computer." And I'm like, that just seems like another thing to manage on a computer that I'm already trying to get less to manage on. So I was like, let me just go to Target, get a 50-cent notebook, and I write down everything in there. Just makes my life a little bit easier, I find. And it doubles as a songwriting notebook now, which is cool.
I feel you.
And a football notebook.
Yeah.
I'm a big paper and pencil type of guy. I have an iPad, but I just don't use it too much. I'd rather just jot things down on paper and not get the screen in my face.
For sharing things with people. Like if I want to draw something out and share it to someone, I think the iPad's really good for that. But
it's got its uses. It's just another bright thing. It's just nice not to have something that is backlit. A friend of mine had this tablet. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like an iPad that wasn't backlit at all. It was cool looking, but
an iPad that wasn't.
It was some sort of tablet, but it wasn't backlit, and you could write on it, and it just kind of felt like writing on paper. That was kind of cool, but I don't know if it's worth buying when you can just have paper. But I gotta have paper. I was at a coffee shop the other day and I forgot my notebook, and I was like, damn, I don't want to walk back. So I got a napkin and I started scribbling all my time stamps. I make this pinwheel, and each section of the pinwheel has time stamps of different structures is kind of how I go through it. And then I'll just write down the time stamps of and then sort them into this pinwheel type shape of the things that are happening. And that was all on a napkin. So it said if anybody found that napkin, they were like, who the hell was writing on this? It says too high run fits and then 70 numbers in different triangles for good and bad plays.
That one image where it's nah, look at my coworker.
100%. 100%.
You guys, I hope you guys are
100%. That's what it was.
Yes.
It was, I was looking at it. It's just faintly there on this napkin because I can't really push down too hard. It's if anybody finds this, they're going to be like, what is this geometric shapes with numbers in them and these labels that don't make any sense. It's just blitz.
Oh my gosh.
Strong SS. I don't write strong safety support. I write SSS. It's what is,
oh God,
what is going on?
There's no. Oh man. So Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. I don't have too much to report. I'm excited to go to Super Bowl Media Week.
Woo!
That's right. We got our emails today. I was excited that my credential went through because I don't know.
You're kind of a suspicious character, and anything like that really is never a lock.
So. I just kind of, when they didn't have me upload a picture like they usually do, and really? I was thinking did I miss something? Are they not going to give it to me because they didn't ask me to do?
They sent me the picture request today.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I uploaded mine right away. Yeah,
Really?
I actually filled it out like pretty much entirely first time, perfectly. But
So,
yeah,
well,
So I don't
they
know
didn't
what
ask
picture
me
is
to
going to be
fill it
on
out
there.
entirely the first time because I already had like an account set up, apparently, and so they had to go in and like,
but they need a picture again.
yeah,
Must have glitched.
I'm gonna just send them the same picture, real talk, as last year.
No, it's exactly what I did. It's the same picture. I need more professional looking pictures of myself. But
You know what, man? We'll take some
I'm just gonna-
great pictures when we're down in New Orleans.
They don't need to be
Facts.
professional. I got my one from last year behind me. Look at me. I got like bed head. I like
that's
just
all right.
rolled out of bed and took
Theo's
this.
gonna get banned from the Super
took
Bowl
this
for
picture.
showing this.
This is last year. All right. I think I can show last year's
I
credentials.
don't know. Are we allowed to show last year's credentials? I don't know.
Bro, I hope so.
Let's test it.
I guess we'll find out. I mean, I would
What,
hope
4 days
last
before
year's
it's supposed to be there? Let's test it. Let's see.
4 days. Yeah.
Some random person's gonna show up to New Orleans with like a laminated paper version of like that screenshot from Stay Hot and try to scan it. It's gonna work. Super Bowl's gonna be ruined.
Yep.
But yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time. I'm a little disappointed because I booked the Airbnb kind of within like 15 minutes of the stadium because I was like, it'll probably be like the media stuff will probably be roughly in the same area because it's all like business district-esque. And then the convention center's in the Garden District, of course. So we're pretty
It's like a
far.
15-minute drive. I thought it was going to be something crazy.
No, it's not far. It's just not a 15-minute walk,
Yeah. It's always now you know for next time that the media stuff is always in the city's convention center.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But it's okay. We'll
I
work.
tried my best. No one can say I didn't. But let's get into these all-pro teams. The all-stay hot team. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start just kind of high-level, like quarterback weapons, and work our way down?
Yeah, I think we go in just regular order. We go quarterback first, and that way people who know only one position matters in this game
can click off without wasting any time. Good idea.
Or we make them watch the whole episode and save the quarterback for last.
That's mean. That's like clickbait. We're not about that here.
That's true. We're very professional. That was your New Year's resolution, Theo, right?
True.
So, true. We'll start with the quarterbacks then. And the quarterbacks were my responsibility. And I kept this pretty simple. I think if we're just going off of regular season, which is typically how these all-pro teams are done, QB1 is Lamar Jackson, QB2 is Josh Allen, in my opinion. Do you guys have
That's how I would have had
anything
it.
to refute that?
No, I guess I don't have a huge argument against it. I think it's pretty close, and I could see it either way. Like, Josh has some serious, I was on Team Josh for MVP for a while, but I think as the season rounded out, just statistically what Lamar did and how important he was to that offense. I mean, with Allen it is too, but yeah, I don't mind giving Lamar the nod there.
All right.
Yeah, they were the best team in the regular season. Again, the only team that could beat the Ravens was themselves, it seemed, and
They did.
And they did in the end. But over the course of the regular season, there wasn't an offense that was more dynamic than the Ravens. It was them and the Lions. And Goff kind of disqualified himself, I think, with some, performances like the one where he had 5 picks. And there was a game against the Titans when they put up like 50-something points and he only had like just over 100 passing yards, I think. It wasn't necessarily a Goff-centric offense. And they didn't really need him to play well to win. The Ravens were up right there with the Lions in terms of being a top offense, and Lamar seemed to touch every single aspect of the offense that he possibly could. I'm sure you took into account his rushing threat and, his lack of turnovers.
No, I mean, if one thing that I've been thinking about recently around kind of the MVP discussion between Lamar and Allen is I do think to some aspect the team situations got over exaggerated. I think the Bills situation was kind of overstated as being this like terrible, terrible team. And like, I guess in some capacity they did let Allen down in the conference championship. And I think Lamar's team, the Ravens, got over exaggerated as being this like total juggernaut. And even though at the beginning of the season, I think we would have classified them as such, we saw through like, what was it? The first 8 or 10 games, their defense was straight up bad. I mean, it took them getting out of the bye week, moving things around, benching Marcus Williams to even like get back into contention. And then their defense was, of course, outstanding from there on. But I mean, there were stretches in this season where like the Ravens were really just Lamar Jackson.
They were. I think the Bills and the Ravens have very similar supporting casts. Like
I agree.
It's Allen and it's Cook and then it's Lamar and it's Henry. That's a sick, rushing threat duo in the backfield that they both have.
The James Cook slander that like manifested itself simply to like, oh, well, Allen.
People just ignored him. No one slandered him. It's just people don't realize how good he is. And then the offensive line was, I think, better in Buffalo than it was in Baltimore because of Baltimore's guard issues early.
Yep.
I think overall the weapons for Lamar were a little bit better. Bateman kind of showed out this year. Andrews in the regular season combined with Likely was a better tight end room than what Kincaid and Dawson Knox were. I think Henry is better than James Cook, I think, by a bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's about evened out. And for Lamar to have all the better stats than Allen, I do think that is indicative of him doing a little bit more, being more efficient.
I will say I won't be mad if Allen wins MVP. If you want to say like he's due, sure.
Well, isn't it the same people who vote for MVP vote for the All-Pro?
It is
team.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
like if Lamar got first, so he's probably going to win.
Hey.
I would be a little bit upset if Allen won the MVP award because of that. Like, how would you vote for Lamar first team All Pro and then like give Allen what would then be like a pity MVP award? Like, if he wins, and I think there's still a chance that he does, it'll truly be because people just think like he needs to get one, and this year was a year that's fine to do it. I still think that might happen, but we'll see.
Maybe they'll look at it and say, well, Baltimore had more first team All Pro players on their team, and so we're gonna give it to Allen. I don't know.
I could see it going both ways. I think it'll be Lamar. Common sense would suggest that it's Lamar, but I still think Allen could sneak it out.
I think we would all give it to Lamar. I think all of our listeners would give it to Lamar because they all agree with us in everything we say all the time.
That's true.
That's true. So that's the quarterbacks. Do we want to move on to the offensive line or to the weapons?
Let's do weapons first. I feel like they're more prominent in the pecking order of units.
Okay, I'll kind of run through what I have here semi-quickly. I have Saquon Barkley as the running back. He broke 2,000 yards and probably could have broken the all-time rushing yards record if he had played a 17th game. That is a pretty high achievement. He also is just having one of the great running back seasons ever. There's only 9 guys to break 2,000 yards still. So if you want to talk about like, oh, well, he got an extra game, well, he didn't.
Right.
And you do have to keep in mind that we play in an era now where there's less emphasis on giving it to one guy a ton. He might have the least carries of any of the guys that broke 2,000. I don't know. I'm making that up in my head. But he's just the second to play in the Super Bowl. Not that that's part of what I took into account. Obviously, like his efficiency was great. He looked like, a home run hitter. Just watching the film, I think he had like 45, 46 10-plus yard runs, and it feels like he had a ton of just massive hits. in a way that you don't see running backs.
He's had 7 60-plus yard touchdowns.
60 plus is crazy. There's just not that much field.
There's only 2 other players in NFL history with 4.
Right. And he had like a marquee moment with the hurdle spin thing. Like, I understand the Eagles offensive line is good. I understand Jalen Hurts is there, but this is going down as one of the all-time great running back seasons. And I think it'll probably win him Offensive Player of the Year, even over a guy who got the Triple Crown, which is pretty crazy. Derrick Henry, I think, also had a pretty good case. I mean, he didn't finish that far behind him. But I think Saquon just beats him out here. I did do a fullback. I went Kyle Juszczyk just because his usage is the highest of basically any fullback. Nobody is given the number of touches that he gets, I don't think, which to be clear is like 25. And nobody plays the snaps that he plays, which to be clear is like 50%. Although Patrick Ricard came pretty close in those terms. I think he got to 40%. If you want to argue me on that, I don't really care that much. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, it could be whoever. I think Juszczyk actually ended up being second team All-Pro. And I kind of like looked and tried to find any sort of explanation as to why. I saw that the voting was like pretty dead even, so whatever. But I think, with such a limited position, anybody who's getting seriously used is, in my opinion, probably the best. Then at wide receiver 1, I've got Jamar Chase. He won the Triple Crown. Doesn't really get any more simple than that. Wide receiver 2, I've got Justin Jefferson. I kind of view the Sam Darnold stuff this year as just the Justin Jefferson impact. And if you do that, it's pretty easy to have him up here on first team All-Pro. I also think he was like second in yards, and his yards per route run, I'm sure, was crazy high. And I thought this was kind of an easy one. However, the interesting, I think maybe the most interesting debate in all of the All-Pro teams is what you do with wide receiver 3. I thought for a second I was going to be lame and be like, that's my flex, and I'm going to go Derrick Henry, but that's just not how the All-Pro teams are. It's a third wide receiver. It would be, I didn't even pick. It very likely could be Puka. The only problem, and if he had played 17 games or even closer to 17 games, this would be easy. Yeah. Puka had the highest yards per route run in the NFL this year by a ridiculous margin.
Yeah.
And probably would have prevented, or would have had a good chance of preventing Jamar Chase from getting the Triple Crown if he had played all of those games. However, he only played 11, which is starting to get like really, really low. It's right on the borderline. You've also got Nico Collins, who played 12 games, who I think was second in yards per route run or third, and he cracked 1,000 even though he missed 5 games. So there's a couple of dudes who I think were really vying for this, where you're like, yeah, that's a first team All-Pro caliber guy, in my opinion, this year, who got a little banged up.
A.J. Brown probably in that conversation as well.
A.J. Brown's in that conversation as well, and the Eagles' offense had some limitations. He was also very high there. The actual winner was Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Very fair.
And I think that's very fair. He was super consistent this year. He's the focal receiving point of the Lions' offense. The Lions can also sort of get into a mode where they just want to run and run and run, and I think that can limit his production at times. But to be completely honest with you, Amon-Ra's volume and Amon-Ra's like yards per route run don't really stick out in a crazy way. So I left this as, if I don't care about injury, I'll go Puka. And if I do, and it's no Collins and no Puka, I'd go Brian Thomas Jr. as the third guy. He was third in receiving yards. He was among players who were like remotely viable for this. He was first in yards per target. And when I compared him to other guys like Drake London, who I think is another dude who I probably was second team All-Pro, maybe not. I don't know how they divvied up the injury stuff, but could have easily been. He actually had a higher yards per route run than those guys. And he was doing this in an offense that wasn't very good and wasn't very consistent and had guys running into each other. I mean, they were a mess. And despite this, Brian Thomas Jr. put up statistically a performance that I think easily could land him this high. A lot of his big time plays, which to some extent maybe his numbers statistically and like advanced stats or whatever are so good because he like hit on a couple of deep balls in a way that other guys don't. But I couldn't come up with a reason not to give him full credit for that. I mean, those type of plays we talk about all the time are so much on the receiver. When, not to say that Lawrence wasn't accurate when throwing to him all the time, but a lot of that is on Thomas to go up to make the play. And he did. He was fantastic. I thought his body control was good. I thought his route running was good. His overall ball tracking skills. I mean, it definitely is maybe I don't want to say an outside of the box pick because I think he actually did get second team All Pro. So I'm not totally going off the beaten path here, but I kept trying to make the argument against it, and I thought, Amon-Ra, I wouldn't be mad if it was him. I wouldn't be mad if it was Drake London. I wouldn't be mad if it was Collins or Puka, but if I'm taking into account injury, I really think the big thing that held Brian Thomas Jr. back from being higher is the fact that he's a rookie, and he got kind of discounted for that. And I think if, Amon-Ra put up the season that Brian Thomas Jr. did, he'd be first team All-Pro anyway. So I had him getting it over everybody else, although it's razor thin. And I think there's probably 5-6 good answers for the third slot.
I could see the Brian Thomas selection. I mean, he was third in yards and made so many big plays and did most of his work with Mac Jones at quarterback in Jacksonville. So it's not like he could have had more yards, like if Mac Jones didn't miss him on a couple big deep balls. But I'm sure the same goes for Amon-Ra. I'd go with Amon-Ra if I was you, Matt, because of the blocking edge. I really think Amon-Ra can like attach to the end of the formation is like kind of an important piece in that way, which can't really be quantified. And he did have a lot more just first downs. But that would have come through in EPA numbers and some other advanced metrics for receivers. But I do think the reliability of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Well, and that's part of what I thought there. And I do understand that with Amon-Ra, I mean, like his consistency this year, not just with the blocking, but as a receiver is so key for the Lions. I mean, I think, I forget what it was, but I think it's like catch over expected, which I don't necessarily always trust the catch over the rushing yards over expected stats because what they expect, I never agree with. But I think it was like the highest in the league by a ridiculous margin.
There was a stretch this year where Amon-Ra St. Brown did this: 7 catches on 7 targets, 2 catches on 2 targets, 8 catches on 8 targets, 4 catches on 4 targets, 6 catches on 6 targets. That's all a stretch of games that he had. He just catches everything. But the stat lines in some of those games, 45 yards, 37 yards, 7 yards, 56.
And here's the thing: Jacksonville passed even less than Detroit. And while I think Amon-Ra deserves a lot of credit for being consistent, and like, again, I think all of these guys are razor thin, Brian Thomas Jr. is not going to be consistent like that in Jacksonville. It's just not an offense that's built to do that. And I think his play style, it's a little bit more like hit or miss, like deep shot or not. But ultimately, he has way less targets than everybody else up this high. And he beat all of their production. He has more yards per route run, more yards per target. Like, he was a great red zone threat. I don't know. I think that there's a real case to be made for him. And there's just so much. I don't even want to say that it's just name value attached to wide receiver, but it's definitely difficult as a rookie wide receiver to get yourself up when there's so many like established guys.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
But he's fantastic. He's so good.
He's the truth.
Yeah, he's a beast.
He's the truth.
And then tight end is your last weapon, right?
Oh, that's right. This is another one where I think you had multiple options. I went with Brock Bowers.
Yes.
I think Bowers is a guy who, I was thinking about how many tight ends are really the focal point of their offense. To some extent, I know he's with the Raiders and it's like, well, someone's going to have to be the focal point of the offense. But I think I just think the receiving numbers that he put up were too crazy not to have him as the first team All Pro. It could have been Kittle and his blocking value, but I think there's just another level of pressure on a guy when you have to go out there and the scheme is around stopping you. I feel like that's not always necessarily the case when you're going up against the 49ers and Kittle and whatever. I know maybe some people would like to say, well, because he's the only weapon there, he's going to get a lot of targets, but I just don't think that's a guarantee at all. I don't think that's how it works even a little bit. You have to earn your targets no matter what, and he was relatively efficient, all things considered, when you take into account the fact that he has, probably the worst quarterback situation of any team. Maybe the Giants are worse. I don't know. Easily among the worst, where it's just totally unserious quarterback play. But in spite of that, Bowers is so good that he was still able to produce at the level that he did. He's like a receiver basically, and I gave him the nod over Kittle.
Yeah, I think Bowers is the right pick. I think I would still give him Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think the argument against, he's the only guy there, so of course he's going to get a lot of targets, is the defense knows that too. So stop him. If he's the only guy there, then they should be doubling him every play. And if they're doing that and they can't stop him, or if they're choosing not to do that, that's on them.
I just think it's kind of not canceled out by the fact that he's not playing in a serious offense. He's probably seeing the ball a little bit more than he would if there was super talented receivers there, but then the offense would probably be better. Or maybe his quarterback play could be better. There's huge downsides
his quality of
as well to playing there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of players who are in that offense too, where it's it's not a guarantee that somebody's going to see 150 targets in every offense, right? That's not how it works.
Right.
So I just don't quite buy that. And with Kelsey not really having some great regular season, it's he's sort of the only tight end in the NFL really doing it at this level in terms of just the volume and the amount that they lean on him. And I think you got to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have gone Kittle, but I respect the Bowers pick. I think in many ways Kittle had his best season, but unfortunately he missed 2 games, I think, and obviously the 49ers weren't very good.
Hey, Theo, you could have been the one to pick weapons.
Hey,
you didn't want it.
Yeah, I don't think Bowers is a bad pick at all. I just saying my piece. Just saying my piece.
That's what makes it a podcast, isn't it?
In what ways do you think he had his best season?
In what ways do I think he had his best season? Well, this year he kind of is the focal point, I think, for the 49ers with McCaffrey being as injured as he was and Ayuk being out. Kittle does kind of become the guy that you've got to stop. His success rate when targeted this year, 73.4%. Ridiculous. His second best season in that regard is 65.1. And that was when he played 8 games. So that's a really small sample size. For him to play 15 games this year and to have that kind of efficiency is ridiculous. He caught 83% of his targets. He had a career high in yards per target, 11.8. For a tight end, it's pretty crazy. His average depth of target was far down the field. He was a vertical threat, still making all of these catches. He had more touchdowns than Bowers. He was PFF's number 1 rated tight end by a bit. Not that we'll see if that matters, but just going to throw it out there. I think Kittle had perhaps his best season, and it kind of went under the radar because the 49ers were so bad and disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Bowers, I laugh when people say he's just in an offense that funnels him targets. It's well, no other tight end in the history of the National Football League has ever done this as a rookie. He set all the records. He looks like Justin Jefferson out there in the slot running routes. He's just why wouldn't you target him? And he was plenty efficient. He's sick. He's an amazing, amazing receiver.
He rocks.
Yeah.
Maybe looks like Justin Jefferson's a bit far, but he looks really good when he's split out.
No, let's push that agenda. He's just as good as Justin Jefferson.
He's pretty good. I mean, he's the tight end equivalent of Justin Jefferson so far, with his like receiving yards per game being as high as it is. So he's off to that kind of start.
Yeah, the argument for Kittle is good. I mean, like, part of it too for me is just the fact that it's so much easier to play in the 49ers offense than it is in the Raiders, even in this horrible down year that they had. I mean, it really is tough to compare them at times in terms of like what they're being asked to do and you know, like attention being drawn to them, you know. But Kittle's not a bad choice at all.
Mm-hmm. It's not. That's why I'd pick him, you know. But that's all the weapons, I think. Mm-hmm. You even picked fullback, which I wouldn't have even thought about. Fullback. I don't think so.
You got to respect it.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're really a heat seeker, try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's locations.
I respect going the extra mile. I got offensive line to round out the offense here. I'm going to start with left tackle. I'm just giving it to Wirfs. No one else really even comes to mind who could win at left tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I completely agree. And then you think about, like, you know, just how much of the Buccaneers' success depended on their amazing pass protection. Obviously, that's not all Wirfs, but to sort of be like the leader of a unit that really made a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. At left guard, I got Joe Thuney, who is a fantastic guard, and then in case of emergency, had to kick out to left tackle, which you would just never expect him to have to go do. And he did it, and he went up against like a murderer's row of like players to go up against, like Daniil Hunter in the playoffs. He blocked like Myles Garrett. I get like he was like, there's just no way that should have worked at all. And Thuney didn't like fix the left tackle position. He's not like the world's greatest tackler or anything like that. But for him to be a first team all pro caliber guard and then to kind of solidify that position, I mean, he's playing better than Kingsley Suamataia. He's a better option out there than Wanya Morris, right? So
right.
For him to show that kind of versatility and to step up and do what's asked of him, I think it's kind of in some ways, the most impressive thing any offensive lineman did out there, even though it probably did sabotage his pass blocking numbers having to go out there and do that. But regardless, he did play left guard for much of the season and was a first team all pro caliber guy doing that. And then the tackle stuff is just kind of maybe not the cherry on top, because it's a lot more significant than that. And it's, you know, not just a little decoration, I guess, at the end. They're playing in the Super Bowl with him out there.
Butter and jelly. Like, you can have a peanut butter sandwich, but now it's a peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like that. So at any rate, he's my all pro left guard. At center, I went with Ragnow. There's a lot of great centers in the league right now.
That would have been the toughest pick.
There's Humphrey, there's Linderbaum, there's Ragnow, there's Zach Frazier, there's a lot of great players. So I went with Ragnow, though. I just think that he's a bit different, a bit special. I think his ability to kind of go one-on-one with everybody and let the guards kind of detach and go to their assignment instantly is notable. I think he probably does it more than Creed Humphrey even does. When Ben Johnson took the coaching job in Chicago, I thought it was interesting. Like, he was thanking kind of some of the players from Detroit, and he mentioned Amon-Ra, he mentioned Goff, and he mentioned Ragnow, and those are kind of the only 3 guys he mentioned. And I think that just kind of goes to show how special Ragnow is. He's not like the world's biggest name. I think Creed Humphrey is a bigger name because he plays for the Chiefs, and he's crazy good too, is the other thing. He's crazy good getting out, blocking for screens. But Ragnow's ability to just dominate whatever the matchup is, let the guards get to the second level. I think it's the number one key to the Lions offensive line being as good as it is. That and Sewell's run blocking. Like those two are really the cornerstones of everything. But Ragnow's a beast, just bigger, stronger, faster than every other center, I think. Just a ridiculous athlete who can do ridiculous things on the football field to help unlock that running game.
Yeah.
At right guard, well, I'm going to talk about Linderbaum. He had too many bad snaps, so I crossed his name out. Too many bad snaps.
When you said too many bad snaps, I was like, you went and counted like his bad reps, and I
just remember against the Bengals when he
literally bad.
He fired some too fast at Lamar, and Lamar couldn't handle him. And then in the playoffs, of course, on Lamar's fumble, that snap was bad. So I was like, I don't think Ragnow has had that many bad snaps this year. So Frazier also had a lot of bad snaps this year, the rookie. He's good,
part
but
of playing center.
It is a big part of playing center. You got to snap the ball. I feel like Humphrey and Ragnow didn't have those issues, so I went with Ragnow.
Okay.
At right guard, it's tough between Miners and Chris Lindstrom.
I thought for sure you were going to be Miners all the way because
I am Miners. I am Miners, though.
Okay.
I think PFF had Lindstrom as like a substantially better run blocker. I don't really agree with that. I think Miners is just as good.
Mm-hmm.
He does such a good job getting to the second level. He always just finds a way to attach himself and give his running back an angle to work off of. He does some pretty crazy things athletically to climb and just get enough of a piece of somebody to make the block, which Lindstrom does as well. I think Lindstrom has got to be like the fastest offensive lineman ever. Like he can really just fly and get to the second level. But I think Miners has maybe even a bit more of kind of a nastiness and ability to contort himself and an ability to be physical. And then the Broncos offensive line this year, I mean, the protection was great. Bo Nix hardly took any sacks, despite the fact that he was holding it for over 3 seconds a lot of the time. For everybody along that offensive line to be able to hold up in that environment is very impressive. Now, there's a lot of bootlegs and rollouts, which kind of lets the offensive line get eliminated, just wash everybody down, and then Bo Nix kind of goes out the other side. So that's part of it, why Miners didn't allow many pressures. But the other part of it is he's just a great pass protector with a great anchor and like that really naturally low center of gravity. I think it's a little bit harder to overpower him than it is Lindstrom. Lindstrom can get walked back a little bit more, I think, by power than Miners, and I think they're similar. They're similar run blockers. So I did lean Miners there.
There you go.
I don't know if any of you guys disagree strongly. Any Lindstrom heads in here?
Lindstrom's great.
Lindstrom is great. It was a good debate between them. I watched all the 10-yard runs and so the third down passes from them to prep for this, and just came away a little bit more impressed with what Miners was doing. Miners is also just a better name for a guard. Like I feel like the guards are the Miners of the offense. Like just put your hard hat on and like just be like a gopher. Like just kind of tunnel around and clear out these lanes. Like,
did Miners actually end up getting the first team All-Pro?
I don't know, actually.
So yeah, I mean, is the Associated Press taking this into account?
I think
Miners. Yes, it was Miners and Tooney were the All-Pro guards.
Miners got the. They didn't listen to the PFF propaganda because PFF had Lindstrom number one, and I kind of disagreed with that. But I thought maybe AP would kind of go off their grades.
Had Lindstrom and Nelson.
Nelson's not a bad pick either for a left guard. Nelson's not a bad pick either at all. So I'll give him that one. But Tooney, he didn't kick out to tackle and be a hero like Tooney did. And then right tackle is probably my most controversial choice. Of course, who do you give it to? Penei Sewell or Lane Johnson? I went with Lane Johnson.
Really?
I went with Lane Johnson. I think Sewell might be better in the run game, but it's very close. They're both pretty high end. And then Lane, I was watching all the third and long snaps from both of them today. And I was like, this is how I'm going to kind of choose. And Lane is pretty much perfect on all these third down and long situations, like just pretty much unbeatable in pass protection these days and for a long time. Like, and he went up against Parsons. Like, he had some reps against Garrett. He had some reps against TJ Watt that I saw. Like, I think he had a more difficult schedule than Sewell did. He was on the ground a lot less. I think he's a more balanced going backwards than Sewell is. Like, Sewell's very hard to beat in pass pro, but you can beat him. Lane Johnson, like, I just don't see it. It just doesn't happen, like, ever. So I went with Lane. I think also
he was upset that he didn't get it.
He was?
Yeah, he was really. He had some like thing posted on his locker after he lost, like comparing him and Sewell's stats.
Really? I didn't even look at. I did not look at it was just from looking at the third down reps. It's like, okay, like Lane has got him as a pass protector pretty easily, and the scheme helps Lane less as well. Like, Lane is kind of out on his own. Sewell doesn't get like a ton of help, but like because they have Rag now, who is my first team All-Pro center, the guard can kind of go help out Sewell. On the Eagles, Juergens and Becton like kind of need to help each other, and that leaves Lane out there on an island. With the Lions, it's not quite that way. Like, you don't have Ragnow doesn't need any help. The right guard has the greatest job in the world. Like, his right tackle and center can handle anybody on an island pretty much. He gets to do whatever he wants, I guess. And yeah, I think Sewell received a little bit more help from his guard handling some.
Well, do you want to hear the comparison? Oh. This is Lane Johnson posted on his locker after he got second.
Sure, I would love to hear what it said.
Okay, so it's like, it says Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell, and then I'll read off the categories. Sacks allowed: Lane Johnson 0, Penei Sewell 1. QB hits allowed 1 to 5. QB hurries allowed 9 to 22. Pressures allowed 10 to 28. Pass block win rate 94% to 91%. Island rate 75%, in parentheses, first in the league, to 55%, 58th in the league.
Ooh.
Quarterback time to throw 3.13 seconds to 2.79.
That's the other thing. Hurts holds it for so long. I was about to bring that up. He's right. He's spitting. All those stats are true. Like the island rate, the lack of sacks. Like, it's all facts from Lane.
Island comparison is crazy.
It's a good call out. And the thing is that Lane is one of those guys where it's like Hall of Fame is kind of, these little things matter a lot. Yeah. It's tough as an offensive lineman to make the Hall. You got to have like a long career, and you got to put up a lot of accolades. So I get why he's upset.
Yeah, and they're both like, I think maybe Penei is like a bit crazier as a run blocker, but like Lane is the gap between them as pass protectors to me is bigger than the gap between them as run blockers. Who had more receiving
yards this year?
That is a good question. Ben Johnson owes Lane Johnson a few years in the Hall of Fame. He would have been first ballot if he got first team, but because Ben Johnson featured Penei Sewell on an end around, Sewell's gonna get in. But I think ball knowers know that Lane should be first team. Like Brandon Thorne, who everyone, I don't know who he has as his first team all. I didn't look on purpose because like he watches way more offensive line tape than me. Like, he has a whole Substack dedicated to like breaking down offensive line play. I know that he's like, if Lane isn't the only thing that matters is if Lane gets first team All Pro is like his whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, I think I see what you're saying, man. Like I think it's true. So anyway, Lane may not have gotten an AP first team All Pro, but he is a stay hot first team All Pro. So Hall of Fame here.
Right tackle. Put that
hear
on
us
the
now.
Ball reference page.
Yeah.
So does that bring us to the defensive side of the ball?
That does.
All right, and we'll work, I guess, inside out now. Starting with the defensive line and go to linebackers and into the secondary, and then we'll finish out with special teams. I had the front seven guys. The way I structured this was the same as the all-pro team, so it's just 2 edge, 2 interior defenders, and then 3 linebackers. At my first edge, I have Myles Garrett. Shocker. Best defensive player in football. My second edge player is going to be a little controversial, is TJ Watt over Trey Hendrickson. I think TJ Watt's season is massively underrated because a lot of people expect him to go out and have like 20 sacks every year. And when he doesn't do that, it's like, oh, he had a down year. But I've emphasized this earlier on in the year. I think his role was just a little bit different. You look at the rest of the Steelers defense, there's a lot of production going to other players like Cam Hayward, Highsmith, etc. And when they blitz guys like Patrick Queen as often as they do, it kind of allows TJ Watt to operate in kind of this like roaming, almost like a spy situation all the time, which probably suits their defense very well, allowing him to just kind of like freelance a little bit. And he's also a phenomenal run defender. Like, you could just, it's so hard to just attack his outside. Theo, I imagine when you talk about corners, you'll end up bringing up Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Sauce Gardner won Defensive Rookie of the Year, not because they put up like broke interception records, but because when you look at their passing chart, there's like, when you look at passing charts against them, there's like a chasm where the ball doesn't go because you can't attack that side of the field. When you're going against TJ Watt, it's kind of the same thing. You just can't attack him at all. And so for that reason, I make him my first team all stay hot edge defender next to Myles Garrett.
That makes total sense to me. I was looking at Sports Info Solutions data of all the runs the Steelers have faced to the right, and there's like nothing. Like, it's just a void. And that's really just as valuable or more valuable than sacks. If you put TJ Watt as your defender, as your left outside linebacker or whatever, think of it, or compared to like a league average player over there, the difference in rushing yards allowed to that side is going to be as big as the chasm between like TJ Watt's yards, lost, or offensive yards lost in sacks versus offensive yards lost in sacks with an average player. Like, it's the same impact, dissuading runs to that side or making tackles for loss to that side. It might be even more of an impact than getting sacks. And he still had 10 plus sacks. Like,
he still had good numbers. They just he's just not screaming off the edge every single play.
Yeah, his pressure numbers were the worst that they've been, but he still finished when he got there. So he still forced fumbles, like the most in the league. He still got to the quarterback. Like, he still brought him down. He didn't have his best season. He probably had his worst season on a one-on-one pass rushing perspective. He did. There isn't any question about it that he did. But he still is a very deserving first team All-Pro because of all the other things that he does.
Yeah, I do think it ended up going to Hendricks, Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Hendrickson, he's such a poor, alternatively, Hendrickson is a poor run defender, and I think that's
why I didn't pick him.
Yeah.
I would have gone with Parsons. I thought about Parsons, but Hendricks, I was like, he's not a good enough run defender to justify being a first team guy to me. So those are the edge guys.
I understand.
Defensive line, I really wanted to put Jalen Carter on here. I really did, because there were moments this year where he was just tearing guys up, but I do think it has to go to Chris Jones and Cameron Hayward as the two guys. I talk about like TJ Watt, great at what he does. Cameron Hayward was an absolute monster this year. I mean, the number of times that he just like blew up the interior of an offensive line, either to stop a run or to sack the quarterback. I mean, just absolutely ferocious. And he's 35 years old. He's just such a beast. Chris Jones, everything, kind of like Myles Garrett, everything that needs to be known about Chris Jones is already known. I don't feel a need to elaborate there. But man, I wanted to pick Jalen Carter so bad because when we talk about linebackers, I'll bring up Zach Bond. But like one of the things that helps those guys out is when defensive linemen can just like absorb blockers and can just move people out of the way, open up lanes for you. And Carter's been so good this year, but not quite first team, I fear.
I don't hate the Hayward pick. Do you know he had 11 passes defensed this year? Like,
dude.
that's a lot.
Because he just bat him at the line, man. He's crazy.
Yeah, he had a fantastic season. There's so many good defensive tackles right now. It's tough. Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence was great this year. Leonard Williams got all pro bid, got some votes, but didn't win it. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
I'm kind of a merchant of this player, but there's another player who had an underrated season as a defensive tackle who deserves first team consideration. Jeffrey Simmons, baby. Jeffrey Simmons.
Actually, yes. Yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons had an insane year and had a first team all pro caliber year, which I don't know if that means he should win it or if Cam Hayward should, because a lot of guys had first team all pro caliber years. But I feel like Jeffrey Simmons, I guess his sack stats aren't too eye popping. Now that I pulled up his Pro Football Reference page, he only had 5.
Yeah.
But he made so many he had 41 solo tackles, 11 tackles for loss, like tons of pressures this year. Like he was such a beast in the run game. 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumbles recovered. Like he was, I think.
It's hard.
I don't think
it's hard
Pro
to
Football
finish
Reference
on
page.
sacks on the interior if you're not also getting pressure on the edge. I feel like I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
On that.
I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Like if you get pressure on the inside, the quarterback's just going to bail. But if there's pressure on the edge and they can't, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the defensive linemen. That brings us to linebacker. The first 2 are easy. Fred Warner, Zach Bond. Everyone knows those 2 guys cooked. The third pick is tough because to some extent, linebackers kind of fall into the name bias and the PFF bias category where it's like, well, this guy gets graded highly. Oh, I know this guy. So like Bobby Wagner ended up actually making first team All-Pro. I am not going to pick Bobby Wagner for the All Stay Hot team.
Good.
I thought about Jack Campbell. He had a pretty good year for the Lions.
Yes, he did.
And I'm still leaning towards I could pick him, but I thought about Roquan Smith, but he started off the year so poorly. The line, and obviously things got better with the Ravens defense after they switched things around, but I just think like his totality of a season wasn't that special. The guy that
just say
really
Edgerrin Cooper, man. Let's get on with it.
I'm not saying Edgerrin Cooper, I fear. I'm not saying Ivan Pace. I'm not saying Frankie Louvu. I want to give it to Jordan Brooks. I think Jordan Brooks had a really underrated season as a linebacker. I saw a lot of Dolphins fans talking about this, and I hadn't even thought about it until I was just like scrolling Twitter. And I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot about Jordan Brooks this year. He just didn't get talked about like that much. But when you go back and you look at some of his performance, I mean, the number of times he's able to just like shoot through gaps quickly, it's probably the most aggressive I've ever seen him. I mean, he is flying downhill, blowing up screens, blowing up guys in the backfield. He's, obviously great in coverage, tracking running backs out into the flat, driving through, the catch to force incomplete. I mean, he was so good this year that I really do think if we're talking like a third linebacker, I can kind of do whatever I want to some extent. I'm going to give it to Jordan Brooks. I think he was underrated. The fact that he didn't get any consideration for an All-Pro team, I think is a little bit disrespectful.
100%. I love the Brooks pick. He was sick in coverage too this year. I tweeted some clip out at some point of him like running under a 4 verticals, like seam route as the linebacker in cover 3, like that should be there all the time. Like he was able to diagnose it, like float under the route, get a hand on it. He has always been able to make really high end coverage plays, like off play action, getting his butt turned around and looking for crossers or sinking under routes in the middle of the field. Like he can make some amazing plays in coverage. He can blitz. He can defend the run sideline to sideline. I think that's a great pick. He's
up there with Fred Warner's as one of the most complete linebackers in the game.
I agree with that. He has some Warner-esque moments in coverage for sure.
He does. He's so good. So good. NFL, AP, Associated Press should have given him some All-Pro consideration.
Should have locked in.
They should have locked in. Don't know what they were thinking. So that's the front seven. Theo, I think that's back to you for the secondary then.
Yeah, I'll go corners first. I went with Surtain, obviously. Silent,
Probably
basically the whole
year.
Probably like think about the game versus the Bengals, right? Like, did you hear Jamar Chase's name said too much? Like, no, they were picking on the number 2, Riley Moss. Just don't go after Surtain at all. And in that Browns game, that was obviously so high scoring. There was a lot of yardage allowed. Judy went crazy, but it was never on Surtain, or hardly ever on Surtain.
Quarter, Judy was very quiet. And
yeah, once you put Surtain on him, it solves a lot of problems. They were able to upset the Jets early in the year. I mean, I guess it didn't end up being an upset, but at the time it was.
Yeah.
Because he was just following Garrett Wilson around and locking him down. Like, he was a shutdown island corner the way you think. The way you think of when you think of Darrelle Revis or Deontay or whoever it is. Like, Surtain had that kind of a season. Cammie met Pat Surtain yesterday at her job. He showed up to film some promo, and he was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Where does she work?
She works at the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say the news vaguely.
She works for the paper.
Yeah, she works for the news. So,
the Daily Planet.
Shout out Pat Surtain. He was very nice to her and everybody at her station. So, shout out to him for being a polite king and also being first team all stay hot.
All stay hot. Let's go.
My other corner, I'm going with Derek Stingley. Just clutch this whole year. Tons of moments in the fourth quarter where I feel like he won the game for them. Like, there's a famous not a famous Jaguars game, but I covered the Jaguars game where he had like 3 pass breakups on like third downs in the fourth quarter or something like that. Just clutch. Put the game away in the playoffs versus the Chargers. I don't know if we want to count anything in the postseason. I know regular all-pro wouldn't, but just kind of goes to show his ball skills are ridiculous. Teams didn't really throw at him. Him and Lassiter, just an elite duo. Stingley, great season.
Yeah, the game against Miami was absolutely insane. In the fourth quarter, they just decided to have him follow Tyreek Hill, and he got 2 just absolutely back-breaking interceptions, including the one where he's like literally step for step and caught it over his shoulder. Like,
yeah, he was a walking dagger this year to win the Texans games. Obviously, the Texans offense was disappointing this year. They fired Slowick. We didn't cover that, but shout out the Texans for doing that. I think that was smart.
A lot of people thought that was like kind of a bad move.
They don't know what they're talking about.
I'm like, dude,
they think Slowick was overrated. Like, they're like, oh, he was so elite in 2023. Like, one bad year, you're going to fire him. He was not that good in 2023. Like, the Texans offense was
it was like all the same stuff that we saw in 2024. It was just Stroud just converted on those 3rd and longs more often.
Yeah, and he still had to convert like a ridiculous amount on 3rd and long this year. Like, all of his production has been on 3rd and long, and there's a reason for that. So Slowick, didn't think that was I think that they can upgrade. I'll say that. But at any rate, you didn't even need to give a 3rd linebacker, Blaiden, because I put in a nickel. We could have lived in nickel.
That's so. Wait,
AP
you
did
a
both.
3rd corner, or you did?
I did a nickel, like a nickel player. I think that is kind of its own. I did DeJean.
Okay, yeah.
I did DeJean. Crazy tackler. Part of the forced fumble revolution that the Eagles are doing. Like, If you check it down against that too high, like here comes DeJean, he'll go clean it up. He'll punch the ball out. He's crazy in the underneath zones, like making sure not to get too much width and open up the middle of the field. Got some good PBUs that way, like sinking under things and getting a hand on it. He was just everything you're looking for in a slot corner, being able to handle guys in man, being able to defend the run, being able to do those shallow zones. Like he was, I think, the best nickel corner in the league this year. And once he was inserted into the starting lineup, the Eagles defense really became the supercharged unit they are today. So Surtain, Stingley, and DeJean. Is DeJean the only rookie on here? Bowers. You made Bowers
on here
so
also.
Bowers and
You
DeJean.
thought about Frazier.
I thought about Frazier. Yeah.
That's it, though.
Verse could have been a all-pro candidate, too.
Yeah.
Honestly, so could have Mitchell.
Not over Garrett or Watt, I fear.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, maybe over Watt. Like, he had more pressures. He was also a very good run defender. He had 4 sacks and Watt
He needs
had
to be
12.
in the conversation.
He can be in the conversation. I just
So it's hard, but
No,
yeah.
who's a more is Jared Verse an unforgettable player?
Is it luck or is it no?
Is it luck?
And then my safeties, I have kind of the usual suspects. I have Hamilton and Derwin James.
Yeah, I agree with the Derwin James pick a lot. I think they went Kirby Joseph.
And McKinney. I think it was Joseph.
Did they really go McKinney and
Joseph?
Kirby Joseph?
I think they did.
They did.
I think that's probably a little bit. I get it. I think that's probably respecting the interceptions a little bit too much.
That's what I'm thinking. Like James, he's more than solid in coverage, obviously, but then like both of those guys are better than anybody down in and around the line of scrimmage. Like James had 4.5 sacks. He was second on the team in TFLs and tackles. Like he's such a physical force along with someone who can play free safety. And so is Kyle Hamilton. I think McKinney and Joseph are more pure ball hawks. Like Hamilton and James are that as well, but they also, I think, add a little bit of that, a little bit more of a linebacker bonus mentality to their coverage as well, which I enjoy.
Right.
Has the widest range of capabilities of
any
safety, maybe any player on defense. Like I said, Myles Garrett might be the best defensive player in football. It might be Kyle Hamilton, actually.
Yeah, Hamilton's ridiculous. So yeah, that's the secondary. Surtain, Stingley, DeJean, Hamilton, James. So I don't got anything beyond that.
There we go. So then Matt,
No dime.
finish us out with the special teams.
All right, I've got no special teamer and I've got no long snapper. Sorry, but I really considered making up a guy, but I just didn't have it in me. But I think I easily could have gotten away with it. The only issue is that like I couldn't think of any way to explain how I picked a long snapper. I don't know. I
Didn't miss any
it's not an easy one, right? I could have made something up about snap accuracy, I guess. But I got guys for you.
Okay.
Kicker, I have Chris Boswell. He hit the most kicks in the NFL this year. He went 41 for 44. Only one of his misses inside of 50 yards, and I think it was in like the 40-yard range, so that's pretty strong. I think he added the most EPA of any kicker and had like the highest hit percentage over expected. I know people wanted it to be Aubrey. I did too, but he kind of tailed off at the end of the year. So, and he was hurt and whatnot. So I ended up going Boswell for that. For punter, I went Logan Cook. I think Jack Fox was a guy they actually went with, and Cook was second team. But what really moved me is that Logan Cook, I think, had the best punter highlight of the year with his like 73-yard coffin corner punt. And I look for guys who make big time plays at punters, so I leaned him. He also had like a really good percentage of like inside 20 yards, and they called on him a lot because the Jaguars were bad. So
no AJ Cole in the Big 2024.
We're done with AJ Cole. We left him in 2024.
I trust you when you say special team is ought to be left in a certain year.
He was like third for me. Like I don't know. I won't lie. Like I'm not dying on the hill of my all pro punter pick.
Now,
to be completely honest with you.
Why didn't you pick Corey Bojorquez, man.
Is that the Browns guy?
It might be.
Because he plays for the Browns.
All right, man. He's peak. He led the
Got too
NFL
much.
in total punt yards.
Yeah, I bet.
Deshaun Watson is my all-pro punter this year.
Yeah.
He led the NFL. He had the longest punt in the NFL at 84 yards.
Helps when you're backed way up.
It does, man. It does.
For kick returner, I had Kavontae Turpin. He averaged the most yards per kick return, and he's got the most swag of any kick returner right now.
He does?
I think so. He's got a lot of juice. He had that one super sick return. I think that might have been on a punt, though, but I don't really care. You know what I'm talking about. He's awesome. He's the best returner in the game right now. I don't think there's much debate about that. And then for punt returner, I went with Khalif Raymond. Of guys who had like a serious number of punt returns, I think he was like third in yards averaged, but he didn't fair catch it a lot, which I think is good. Not to say that's necessarily right, like a guy who can avoids fair catches, and can return it for however many yards is and be a little bit more consistent, I think is good. And he also had a touchdown. He also had a 90-yard touchdown.
I'll do it.
To be fair, though, this was against Tennessee's special teams, and maybe like all of his numbers are totally padded by that Tennessee game, if you remember.
I do.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm just thinking of that now, so it's already written down on my notebook, so too bad. But I think the other guy is like Marvin Mims, who is way up there as well, and it could have been him. But those are my picks.
There you go.
Khalif Raymond only had 9 fair catches this year. That's
pretty crazy.
On 32 returns. Mims
Pretty
had
good.
25 fair catches and 34 returns. Interesting.
Very.
If there was a all stay hot worst team all pro, Jaden Reed would make it as the punt returner.
We should do that.
I don't think any of my teams have ever had a good punt returner. Or actually, that's not. I mean, Steve Smith way back in the day. But I just always I hate punts. I hate returning punts. It's the least fun part of a football game. It just makes me nervous.
Jaden Reed, I didn't even know this. I just checked to see what Jaden Reed's punt return PFF grade was. 43.8. Checks out.
How can you even have a punt return grade that bad?
It's a problem. He sucked, dude. He was so bad returning punt. Like, he always made the wrong decision. Like, if it was time to let the ball go, he'd catch it. If it was time to catch it, he'd let the ball go. Like,
It's
he didn't
hilarious
break
how
out
bad
any. He didn't
the
break
back of
out any
special
big
teams is.
returns. Like, he didn't break any tackles. Like, did he muff? How many muffs did he have? He had 2 muffs. Like, bro, 8.6 average. He was terrible. He was terrible returning punts this year. His fall off needs to be studied just in general. Like, he was such a horrible player. Like, the last month or so of the season. Like, I'm sick. But
I feel you.
who would be on your worst team all pro, Matt?
I don't know if I'm like hateful off the top of my head. Like, I just kind of don't think that shit's in my nature. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Maybe like someone from the Panthers defensive line.
I mean, like, hey, but here's the
It
thing.
might
it's
be
all-
Leggett, honestly, for you. Leggett. Just
Dude, here's the thing. I just kept being like, well, he's got to catch the ball. And then he tweeted out something like, keep doubting. I'm like, man, I don't want to be a Leggett hater. I want him to be good so bad. He's got it within him, I believe.
Oh,
But
of
dude,
course.
he was pissing me off, man. He sold that Eagles game, I'm afraid. That would be so sick if they had actually won that.
I'm looking at just the PFF grades again now. Leggett had the 6th worst drop grade in the league. Guess who was number 1? Dontavion
Who?
Wicks. Dude, he dropped everything this year too. He's also on my worst team all pro.
That's probably the most disappointing position. I don't know if I want to go that far. It's one of the most disappointing position groups. Like
Reed
the
is
Packers
fifth.
wide receivers are
Reed
supposed
is
to be
fifth worst.
awesome,
He's
man.
he's the spot below Leggett
That's
here.
crazy. The Packers receivers were supposed to be dope this year, and they like sucked. They really
They
sucked.
sucked except for Dobbs, but he got hurt and like left the team for its stretch. Like he like it's just such a disaster. Shout out Christian Watson for keeping the team afloat. Like he had his typical deep drops that were frustrating, and he fumbled in that one Lions game, which sucked. But like at least he did what he was supposed to do, which was like bring down some explosive plays. Everybody else, except for and Kraft too. Shout out you, Kraft. He also counts as part of the weapons. But geez,
We should have just done our all stay hot team of just guys we like. We just like this guy. Kraft would be.
I
I
think a
love
lot of the
Kraft.
same guys would be here, honestly.
We like the good players.
it's true.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
Myles Garrett, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Brooks, like
Fair.
Well,
yeah. You know who else is in that bad drop grades? Amari Cooper.
Boo.
is he really?
Yeah, he's right above Leggett.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tough. Not for me though, man. So I think that'll just about do it for another episode of Stay Hot. The all Stay Hot team. Oh, should we run through the whole team?
Yeah, let's run it through one big time.
Run through it one more time. Quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It's the only position where I picked two.
Yeah, then running back was Saquon, fullback was Kyle Juszczyk, wide receiver 1 was Jamar, wide receiver 2 was Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 3 was Brian Thomas Jr., tight end was Brock Bowers.
Now the offensive line, left tackle Wirfs, left guard Tooney, center Ragnow, right guard Miners, right tackle Lane Johnson.
And then going to the front seven, our edge rushers are Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. Our interior defenders are Chris Jones and Cam Hayward. Linebackers are Fred Warner, Zach Bond, and Jordan Brooks.
And then the secondary is Surtain and Stingley, DeJean in the slot, and then Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James as the safeties.
And then special teams is Boswell as the kicker, Cook as the punter, Turpin as the kick returner, and Raymond as the punt returner. I kind of regret picking Bowers a little bit. I've realized I've kind of just gone yards, but that wasn't my logic for everybody, so we'll see.
That's okay. I think this team
I'm sure
will win the Super Bowl.
Kittle will be devastated to learn that he was snubbed from the All Stay Hot team.
And he doesn't have to forgive me. I don't expect forgiveness.
Oh, he won't. I talked to him before this. He doesn't forgive you. Mm-hmm. But that's tough. I think this team would win the Super Bowl, though. I think they would beat Kansas City.
Yeah, I think all these guys are Lakers at the deadline.
I thought that was so funny, that Shams thing where it's like, Fox, he's not going to the Lakers, guys. It's like, no, what's the point?
So tell me why I comment on Matt's TikTok about about De'Aaron Fox potentially getting traded. And he's like, yeah, Wemby could use a number 2. And I'm like, Wemby would be the number 2, man. And everyone thinks I'm being serious.
I think your most known basketball take is comparing Baker Mayfield to Luka Doncic.
Yeah, but
Maybe that's why.
but I feel like I have a De'Aaron Fox jersey. Do people not know I'm a...
I think people do know you're a De'Aaron Fox fan, and that's why they're...
I think you're overestimating the odds that like somebody who sees that comment on TikTok knows what jerseys you own.
I guess that's fair. But
Like that's
like even stuff.
you
even
should
so,
you should
if
comment
I
and be
say-
like, dude, I'm kidding. You know I own a De'Aaron Fox jersey, right?
I'm gonna I'm gonna reply to that reply with a video of me just wearing my De'Aaron Fox jersey.
Do it.
We'll see. But yeah, I just thought it was just like, obviously I'm joking. But yeah, De'Aaron Fox, the GOAT, my GOAT. Can't believe the Kings would trade him. Such disgraces. But
I don't think they want to. I think he wants out of the Kings.
yeah, well
I
they
think
should
he's
they should
demanding
do more to keep him. if they were smart, or they should send him to the Cavs. But thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. It's been an absolute blast. And until next time, when we are preparing to go to Super Bowl media, and if you're in NOLA, be sure to find us and say hello. But thank you, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.